Hello and welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m. bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. And this is my second attempt at recording this week's show because 25 minutes into my first attempt, my computer decided to crash. Hopefully it doesn't do that this time around. Plenty to go through this week. We've got, as usual, all of the results, all of the fixtures, but there are 3 bits of news to go through as well. And I'm going to get to those in the middle because then that way it just breaks up the monotony of me reading out scores and fixtures. So, without further ado, let's get straight down to it. Northern Premier Division. And we're going to start with the one midweek game, which was Huddersfield Town against Brighouse Town. Lucy Sowerby with the only goal of the game in this one. Brighouse Town now with 13 points out of the last 15. Really hitting form in the midpoint of the season and getting themselves well away from danger in the Northern Premier Division relegation zone. Of course, we'll get onto the table in a moment. Derby County winning away at FAWNL by 3-0. Amy Sims in the 13th minute, Jessica Carnwell in the 55th minute, and an own goal just before half-time as well. Resulted in it being 3-0 to Derby County. Brighouse Town then getting their second win of the week. Lucy Sowerby with her second goal of the week against Boldmere St Michael's. Monique Watson with the other goal for Brighouse Town. Burnley yet again narrowly beating Loughborough Lightning. This one, Leah Jade Embley goal in the 57th minute, giving them the 3 points. So they've come out of that back-to-back with 6 points, but far from convincing for Burnley. Stoke City 2, Liverpool Feds 0. Goals right before half-time, right before the end of the game here for Stoke. Cara Jones in the 45th minute, Roisin Kivell in the 92nd minute with the goals for Stoke City. A 1-1 draw between West Bromwich Albion and Huddersfield Town. Jessica Davis getting the goal for West Brom in the second half. Brittany Sanderson just 3 minutes from time with the goal for Huddersfield, so they share a point each. And in the big game at the top, Wolverhampton Wanderers beat Nottingham Forest by 3-1. Forest had taken the lead in this one. Charlotte Greengrass in the 8th minute with a super strike from about 25 yards out. But Destiny Toussignon just 2 minutes later in the 10th minute, pulling it back for Wolves. 1-1 until the stroke of half-time. 5 minutes into extra time, Jade Cross with a goal to put Wolves in front right before the break. And then the 63rd minute, she gets her second of the game to make it 3-1 to Wolves. They have closed that gap to Forest at the top of the table. Let's have a look at that table now. 3 points, the gap between Forest and Wolves, but Wolves have a game in hand. You would imagine that Forest will stay top regardless of if Wolves win that game in hand because of the superior goal difference that Forest have. But don't discount Burnley, still unbeaten in the Northern Premier Division. They're also on 28 points and with a game in hand on Forest. So all 3 teams could be level on points as we head towards the closing stages. However, those games in hand are not played for a while. It's about another month or so, and with about 4 or 5 games to go that the teams get back level. So that game in hand is going to stay there for some time. Derby remain in 4th. Brighouse Town swap with Huddersfield. Brighouse Town, as I said, got themselves up to 5th now with 13 points from the last possible 15. They were down with 7 points from 10 games, and now they're on 20 points from 15. So they've pulled themselves well away of danger at the moment. Stoke City up a place over Fylde, and at the bottom, West Bromwich Albion, their 1-1 draw with Huddersfield was enough to lift them out of the bottom 2. Boldmere St Michael's go into it, but that is only on goal difference. The caveat to that is that West Brom have a game in hand. The second caveat to that is that both West Brom and Boldmere St Michael's have games in hand over Liverpool Feds, and they're catchable as well. So a lot could happen. Loughborough Lightning still down at the bottom. They're 8 points away from safety with not a very good goal difference, and they only have 8 games to go. I suspect that the writing's on the wall for Loughborough, but you never know. They could go on a run like Brighouse Town. Southern Premier Division then, Billericay 1, Oxford United 2. Important victory for Oxford to keep up pressure at the top of the table. Jay Blackie with the goal for Billericay Town. Oxford United, Aisha Swaby on the stroke of half time, and Carly Johns 15 minutes from the end gave them the 2-1 victory. Bridgewater United 0, Ipswich Town 2. Natasha Thomas with one of the goals for Ipswich Town in the second half, and Lucy O'Brien from the penalty spot getting Ipswich's second, again keeping up the pressure on the teams at the top. Watford beating Cheltenham. This was kind of the closest two teams in terms of league position this weekend that we had in the Southern Premier Division, at the top at least. Kalani Pert in the 8th minute. Kylie Nolan then equalised for Cheltenham in the 16th minute. Own goal just after half-time, just 4 minutes into the second half, made it 2-1 to Watford. And then Poppy Wilson in the 93rd minute made it 3-1 to Watford. Big game down at the bottom two meeting, Crawley Wasps against Plymouth Argyle. Rosie McDonnell in the 8th minute with the goal for Plymouth. Goals for... with the goal for Plymouth, Rosie McDonnell. 2 for Latita Nichols in there as well. In the 50th minute and in the 94th minute. 94th minute, that game was won. The reason it threw me, for anybody interested, is that on the timing sheet, so if you click, obviously if you look at the main screen, you get the goals and what have you. If you then click on full result detail, rather than going down as a Crawley Wasps goal, it's gone down as a Plymouth Argyle opposition goal, and that threw me momentarily. It isn't the greatest system, is full time, let's be honest. So that's 2-2. Crawley. Portsmouth winning away at London Bees by 4-1. They keep going at the top of the table. A hat-trick for Danielle Lane in this one. 30th, 41st and 60th minutes. Tierney Scott popping up a minute later in the 61st to make it 4 to Portsmouth. Goal to Danielle put a foot in the second half for London Bees, but they lose by 4-1. And Gillingham win away at MK Dons by 2-0. A brace for Breon Grant in that one is the only were the 2 goals there for Gillingham. Southern Premier Division table, the top 6 remain exactly the same because Portsmouth, Oxford, Ipswich and Watford all won. Billericay Town and Cheltenham lost 2 teams in that top 4, but they are kind of a little bit in no man's land really. And with a 5-point gap back to Gillingham, who climbed 3 places in that tight bottom of the Southern Premier Division table. Then they've climbed 3 places. MK Dons, Bridgewater United, London Bees all drop 1. But because there's a 5-point gap to Cheltenham and Billericay, they didn't move despite their losses. If you look at the top, it's a bit closer than the table looks at the moment. If you consider that Portsmouth currently top, 31 points. They're 1 point clear of Oxford United, but Oxford United have a game in hand. They could go to 33. Ipswich Town, they also have a game in hand. They could go to 29. Watford are in 4th. They have 3 games in hand. They could go to 32. So by the time that the games played have all sorted themselves out, you could be in a situation where you've got Oxford on 33, Watford on 32, Portsmouth on 31, and Ipswich on 29. Now, it's not going to happen like that in the sense that obviously all the games in hand aren't being played in the next week, so that's not the points they're going to be on. But you can see from that description that should they win all their games in hand, that's how close the top of the Southern Premier Division is going to be. It's very similar to the top of the Northern Premier Division, and that is great for the competitiveness of Tier 3 and those teams fighting out for the chance to get promoted, and that is a piece of news we're going to look at later on. So Gillingham, up 3 places. MK Dons, Bridgewater, London Bees all down a place. Crawley, after beating Plymouth, they remain bottom. They were too far adrift. They're now just 6 points though from safety in the Southern Premier Division. Maybe this will kickstart and give themselves a little bit of a run, and maybe through the last 8 games of the season, they can pick up enough points to see themselves safe for another season. If you look at the fixtures they've got to come, and yes, we will do this in a lot more detail later on in the season. But you look at the fixtures and actually you think, might be a bit difficult. Gillingham, okay, that's a team in and around them. Then they've got Stourbridge in that cup game, the plate semi-final. Then in terms of the Southern Premier Division, they've got to go to Oxford away. MK Dons at home is okay. But Oxford away, Watford away, Ipswich at home, Oxford at home, Cheltenham away, and Portsmouth away. So they do only actually have, Crawley, from their 8 games remaining, 2 games for teams outside of the top 6, and they've only got 3 games against teams outside of the top 4. And all those teams are battling to go up. So, yes, of course, it's football. Anything can happen. But there are only realistically, and let's be honest here, given that the way these teams are playing, really, 3 games. Gillingham away, MK Dons away, and Cheltenham away. So all the games against teams that you look at it and you go, okay, maybe they can do something from that. They're all away from home as well. Let's say it's 9 points. That puts them on 16. You're only looking at all the other teams that are currently outside of the bottom 2 to win 1 game. And it's very, very difficult for Crawley. So wonder if, obviously definitely don't want to say it too early, but you wonder if the writing's a bit on the wall there as well. Plymouth, not so bad, because Plymouth have got they've got 10 games still to go. They've got games in hand on the teams they're trying to catch, and it is only a 4-point gap. You look at Plymouth's fixtures, they have a few more against the teams around them. So they've got 2 against MK Dons. They've got 1 against Bridgewater, 1 against Gillingham. Yes, they've got to play the top teams as well, but they have more games against those teams in and around them. 2 against MK Dons, win those 2 games, that's overturned the points deficit. Win the game against Bridgewater United, it's only 1 point. So it's a lot nicer looking for Plymouth than it is for Crawley. Let's get on to Division 1 North, because as I said, there is a lot to go through, so I don't want to spend too long looking at the run-ins at this stage. Barnsley against Chorley, 0-0. Hull City against Middlesbrough, goal for Hull, Katie Thompson, and goal for Middlesbrough, Emma Foster. Leeds United 5, Merseyrail 1, 3-1 at half-time here. A hat-trick for Abby Brown in the 10th, the 18th and the 67th minute. Amy Woodruff in the 25th minute. Also getting a goal. Danielle Whittam in the 47th minute, making it, getting all 5 for Leeds. 1 for Merseyrail, Sophie Adams just after the half-hour mark. So 3-1 at half-time. Then that hat-trick goal for Brown and the 1 for Whittam in the second half for Leeds. Newcastle United needed to dig deep to get 3 points against York City. 2-2 at half-time in this one. Holly Findlay in the 6th minute. Alice Hughes in the 2nd minute of added time at the end of the first half for York City. But Katie Barker, Millie Bell, Georgia Gibson, Bianca Owens getting the goals for Newcastle. They keep the pressure on Durham at the top. And Stockport County 1, Norton Stockton Ancients 1. Both goals in this game coming in the first 11 minutes. Sophie Hodgson in the 2nd and Ella Ritchie in the 11th minute. 1-1 between Stockport and Norton and Stockton Ancients. What it means for the table, Newcastle United reduced that gap to 4 points and they still have 1 game in hand. Those 2 sides do have to play each other in the middle of March as well. It could well come down to that game between Durham Sestra and Newcastle United. Barnsley with that 0-0 draw, they found themselves a bit far back now, even with their 2 games in hand. Puts them on 29 points. They're 6 points away, not impossible, of course, but it is, you're asking Durham Sestra and Newcastle to slip up on, kind of 2 occasions there. And they've only dropped points in 3 games so far. And so it's a difficult ask. You feel that Barnsley, if they're going to put themselves in that discussion, they've got to go perfect now for the rest of the season. Their final 10 games, they have to go perfect. Now, to their advantage, they do have a home game against Newcastle. They haven't yet, so they have played both their games against Durham. They've got Bradford down at the bottom. They have to play 2 games against Hull, who are in the bottom half. A game against York in the bottom half. They've got 2 against Norton Stockton Ancients, who are in the bottom half. Their top half games, you've got Middlesbrough, and they're down in 6th. They've got Newcastle, who are second, as I've just mentioned. They've got Leeds, who are in fifth. They do have to play Stockport in fourth. So they do have to play everybody in that top half apart from Durham Sestra, but they do have a double there against Hull, who are in the bottom half, and a double against Norton Stockton Ancients, who are in the bottom half. So not impossible for Barnsley to go perfect in the final 10 games of the season, but you feel that's what they need to do if they're going to get themselves into that title conversation. So yeah, Leeds up 3 places after their victory over Merseyrail, because that midfield in Division 1 North is so tight. Middlesbrough, Hull and York all drop a place. Merseyrail and Bradford remain at the bottom. It's a 5-point gap that Merseyrail have got to make up, but they've played far more games than anybody else. They've only got 7 games to go to Merseyrail. They do have, again, some of the teams around them. You look at it, they've got to play Hull. They've got to play Chorley, who are the team they're trying to catch. Middlesbrough, who are only just in the top half. Bradford is a relegation 6-pointer. Norton and Stockton, another team they're trying to catch. And then Stockport and Leeds to finish out. So Merseyrail, you feel, are going to need to get their points pretty quickly. But they do have the opportunity there. It's a 5-point gap. They've got to pick up points against those teams in the bottom half if they're going to remain in Tier 4 at the first time of asking. Bradford City have got 10 games still to play. But again, it's a similar situation. So they've got to play Chorley, who they're trying to catch. They've got a game in hand over Chorley, which does help. And in fact, they've got to play Chorley twice, which really helps Bradford. But then they finished the season with a double against Newcastle, so it's not going to be easy for Bradford City to stay in Division 1 North either. Let's have a look at Division 1 Midlands, because big results in here at the top and towards the bottom. Doncaster Rovers just about get past Leafield Athletic. A second half goal for Sophie Brown proving to be the difference, but they get the 3 points. Long Eaton United 0, Northampton Town 8. Superb victory for Northampton Town, who were 6-0 up at half time. Jade Bell with a brace, Zoe Boot with a brace, a hat-trick for Alexandra Dix, and 1 for Rachel Mumford. An 8-0 victory for Northampton. Peterborough United, 2 goals in the first half was all they needed to get past Sporting Cowser. 7th minute Tara Kirk and 45th minute Keir Perkins. That gave them the 3 points. Stourbridge, a 1-0 win over Solihull Moors just before half-time. Neve Deasy with the goal. A narrow victory, but again, 3 points, all that matters in what was a top-of-the-table clash. And Sheffield get themselves out of the bottom 2 with a 1-0 victory over Wem Town, but there's no information about that game yet. So what it means for the table, Stourbridge are 5 points clear of Doncaster Rovers Bells, who have moved into second over Solihull Moors. Now, Solihull Moors, they're now 8 points behind Stourbridge. That was a huge game for them to lose. And they've played a game more. So Stourbridge, if they win that game in hand, will go 11 clear of Solihull Moors. You feel now, or I feel now anyway, that it is a 2-horse race between Stourbridge and Doncaster Rovers Bells, because just of those games in hand as well. I mean, they can pull themselves, as I said, 11 and 6 points clear of Solihull Moors. Now, the key there is going to be that game between Stourbridge and Doncaster Rovers Bells. That's in mid-March. That being said, Solihull Moors do still have, so Stourbridge still have to travel, to Solihull Moors. And Solihull Moors have got quite a few teams down towards the bottom, so don't necessarily count them out, but it is a long way back for them. Sporting Cows are also on 22, they're in 4th. Leafield Athletic are on 22, they're in 5th, but they've played 15 games. Further towards the bottom, Northampton Town leapfrog Peterborough United on goal difference after their big win, and Sheffield are out of the bottom 2 after a victory over Wem Town. They're 2 points away from 2 points into safety now, and they've got 3 games in hand. Long Eaton United still with just their 1 win so far this season. That one came... I've lost it again now. Long Eaton United's second game of the season against Leafield Athletic. So Long Eaton United really need to pick up some victories. They've got 3 at home now. Sheffield and Leek Town, they're big games for Long Eaton United. Then they have to host Stourbridge, which is going to be difficult. Leafield Athletic, again, they're in the top half. Sporting Cows are in the top half. And then Sheffield, Wem and Lincoln City. So Long Eaton United really need to be targeting the 2 games against Sheffield and then Leek Town and Wem Town. But again, that is only 4 games, and they have to make up, given their goal difference, 10 points. So they have to win all 4 of those games, really, in order to stand a chance of staying in Division 1 Midlands. I think it's another one where the writing is on the wall and perhaps has been for a few weeks now. Division 1 South East, kind of usual story for the teams playing Hounslow, unfortunately. 7 goals for Ashley Hinks for Wimbledon as they go 12-0 past Hounslow. 27, 38, 42, 46, 52, 86 and a penalty for Ashley Hinks. A brace for Eleanor Dorey in the 6th and the 31st minute. And then 1 for Rebecca Bath, Kelly Hyman and Chloe Samsung. 12 goals for AFC Wimbledon against Hounslow. 7-goal thriller down at Ashford. They lose by 4 goals to 3 to London Seaward. Ashley Cheatley in the 28th minute. Alyssa Down in the 60th minute and Amy Dern in the 82nd minute with the goals for Ashford Town. London Seaward had a brace for Catherine Long. One for Franca Zimmerman, and then another one which was an own goal from Ashford, and London Seaward win by 4 goals to 3. Yet another routine victory for #United, 7-1 over Norwich City. They were 5-0 up at half-time away from home. A brace for Grace Gilliard, a brace for Catherine Nutman, and 1 each for Samantha Rowland, Hayley West and Kelly Wellfall with the goals for #United. A 7-1 victory. Olivia Cook with the only one for Norwich City. Cambridge City almost came away with something from their game against Queen's Park Rangers. They took the lead in the first half. Rebecca Stevenson just after the half-hour mark. Joanna Blodgett had equalised 10 minutes after the break, and they almost got a draw out of the game, but Grace Stanley in the 91st minute gave Queen's Park Rangers the victory. Keeps it interesting at the bottom of Division 1 South East, because although # are running away with it at the top, it means Cambridge City at the bottom there remain just the 1 place above Hounslow, and Hounslow have games in hand, but of course they've not scored a point all season. Minus 112 Hounslow's goal difference now. And 2 really important games against Cambridge City coming up, one of which is this weekend. It's been moved forward. So that's going to be really important to see what happens in that one. But let's have a look at the rest of the table. So #United, they are now 8 points clear. Yes, AFC Wimbledon have a game in hand, but that's still going to leave them 5 behind. #United as well with a 65 goal difference. And that's taking into account the fact that AFC Wimbledon added 12 to their goal difference this weekend. So #United, it seems, cruising to the Tier 3 title. Don't forget they went toe-to-toe with Billericay Town last year. Just missed out on getting into the Southern Premier Division. Looks like they're going to do that this year. London Seaward up 3 places because it is so tight again in that kind of bottom top half of the table. So London Seaward up 3 places after their victory over Ashford. Norwich, Actonians and Ashford Town all drop. And Queen's Park Rangers swap with Cambridge United after QPR got that late winner against Cambridge City. And United didn't play. Division 1 South West. AFC Bournemouth 7, Portishead Town 2. Big victory for Bournemouth. This one a hat-trick for Molly Clark. 14th, 33rd, 78th minute. Lucy Cooper with 2 as well, as was Pearl Mortimer. So 7 goals for Bournemouth. Portishead Town, Ellie Stripple in the 53rd minute, getting one of their goals. And there isn't information about the second one, but it's immaterial. 7-2, Bournemouth take that one. Cardiff City, though, superb victory over AFC St Austell. 10-0, 5 for Corey Williams, 2 for Grace Harrell, 1 for Ruby Scarhill, 1 for Laura Williams and 1 for Ingrid Arland. Made it 10-0 as AFC St Austell continued to struggle towards the bottom, at the bottom of the table. Keynsham United 0, Southampton Women 2. Brittany Gilles in the 28th minute, Shannon Albury in the 58th minute with the 2 goals for Southampton Women. Same scoreline for Maidenhead United away at Larkhall Athletic. That was a brace for Natalie Cowell. 22nd minute and 69th minute. Moneyfields did all their scoring early on in a 4-2 victory over Swindon Town. All 4 of their goals coming before the 35-minute mark. A hat-trick for Gemma Simmons in 25 minutes and 1 for Jean Yates on the 17th minute as well. 4 goals for Moneyfields in the first half. In fact, pretty much all the scoring done in the first half, as Swindon had 1 through Catherine Back in the 12th minutes. That was 4-1, and Annabelle Colston, just 5 minutes after the restart, made it 4-2. So, yeah, really close. The goal was really close together. They got 6 in 40 minutes between the two sides. But what was really close was Exeter City not getting the victory against Chelsea. In the end, they win by 2-1. But Katie Delissis had put Chelsea in front in the 36th minute. And then Exeter went down to 10 with 11 minutes to go. JD Seaman seeing a straight red card. But champions find a way to win, and Molly Taylor in the 89th minute made it level. Exeter then made a triple substitution, and Emily Toogood, who had been on the pitch anyway, but the triple substitution, which shook things up, Exeter pushed on. 1 minute later, Emily Toogood put Exeter in front. 2 goals in 2 minutes with 10. Really there, Exeter grinding out a 3-point victory and showing what champions are made of. Will they be champions at the end of the season? We'll have to wait and see, but they're at the top at the moment, and those 2 goals really were crucial, as you can see, because without it, Cardiff would have gone back to the top. Not really a lot of movement in Division 1 South West, because Exeter, who are top, won. Cardiff, who are second, won. Bournemouth, who are third, won. Moneyfields, who are fourth, won. And Maiden and Southampton, who are fifth, won. So all the teams at the top winning, so the points pretty much stay the same as well. Obviously, the goal difference is a little bit different, but Cardiff's goal difference is so out in front anyway. The movements come towards the bottom. Maidenhead United, with their victory over Larkhall Athletic, climb up 2 places. They're now 6 points clear of the drop, and they've got a game in hand over Larkhall Athletic. AFC St Austell are still down at the bottom with just the 3 points to go to show for this season, and they now only have 8 games to play. Doesn't get much easier for them either. They've got Exeter at home this weekend, and they have a double against Moneyfields as well. So those games that AFC St Austell are going to need to be targeting is Maidenhead away, Keynsham away, Portishead away, and Larkhall at home. But again, those games against the teams that they're chasing, they are all away from home. But that is those are the results from the last 7 days. Let's now have a look at the news. As I said, there are 3 bits of news. Let's have a look ahead to next season first of all, because we already know one of the new teams that's going to be joining the FAWNL next season after they won the Southern Region Women's Football League. That is Abingdon United, who have finished their season. Ascot United behind them have got 2 games left to play, but Abingdon are 10 points clear with 36 points out of a possible 42, and that was sealed last weekend when they beat Ascot by 2-0. Megan Crawford and Lindsay Pinker with the goals for Abingdon United. So they are in the FAWNL next season. So they will move into Tier 4. Of course, it depends who comes up and all the rest of it. But, it may be... I suspect actually they're going to go into South West, I would think, because you've got the Eastern and the London and Southeastern regions that are going to go into Southeast. So I suspect Abingdon will go into Southwest, playing the likes of, one of Cardiff and or Exeter and Bournemouth, the likes of that. So that is the first bit of news. We know Abingdon United are joining the FAWNL next year. Let's take a move up to Tier 3. Because news coming out of Burnley a couple of days ago is that head coach Jonathan Morgan has left Burnley to join Championship side Sheffield United and trying to keep them in the Championship. So he's gone there. He joined in May of 2022, was unbeaten in his first 17 games. And obviously Burnley third in the table. We know how tight it is at the top of the Northern Premier Division. Assistant coach Jay Brayford will step up to take charge on an interim basis with vast experience in her own right, having previously spent 6 years at the helm of Coventry United. Burnley would like to thank Jonathan for all his hard work during his time at Burnley Women, and he leaves the squad in a strong position, grateful for his efforts and wish him well for his future endeavours. The club's commitment to Burnley Women remain unchanged, as do our ambitions in both the short term and long term. So wonder how that is going to affect Burnley throughout the remainder of the season, particularly when they are in such a position to challenge to try and get into that playoff game. Now, speaking of the playoff game and promotion and relegation in general, it came out, this was yesterday, in fact, yesterday afternoon, that the Chelsea boss, Emma Hayes, is in favour of getting rid of promotion and relegation altogether and having a franchise-type system as they do over in America. So there is no promotion and relegation. This would be from the Super League. So the teams in the Super League would always be in the Super League, and that's that. This has, what's the best way of putting it, not gone down very well with the vast majority of people in football. Again, this is taking this idea from the States and the big four leagues over there and all the rest of it. But this would separate the top flight clubs from the rest of the football pyramid. Awful idea, quite frankly. Just reading through the rest of the article, of course, Karen Carney and Hayes, they're both contributors to the review of the future of women's football that was launched last year. Yes, she likes the idea of promotion and relegation from a traditional perspective, but it doesn't mean we should be hamstrung by it. We should be open to having this franchise system, and shouldn't get stuck on, no, you have to have this kind of promotion and relegation. She then went on to talk about prize money in the Women's FA Cup and all the rest of it. But yeah, so basically she's in favour of getting rid of promotion and relegation. No, that is awful in my view. Put simply, it leaves, and I've got experience of this within ice hockey. So for those of you who don't know, I'm also ice hockey reporter for the BBC and media manager for an ice hockey team. And we have this, and it's really bad because the teams, so the team that I'm the media manager for are in the third tier, and because the teams who win the league don't get invited, don't get to go to the second tier, it just means that they win the league every year. And you come up against this team and they've always got the best players, because with it being amateur, the players are just where they live. You know, they don't move. They might get 50 quid a week or something in the second tier, but so the best players are in one area and they win the league all the time. And it's just really, really bad. And let's look at, even from an FAWNL perspective, and let's go right the way up here. This is almost like a rant. I'm going to try and not make it a rant. I'm trying to present both sides. I can see her point of view. She's trying to grow the Super League and have everything trickle down, a bit like trickle down economics, I suppose. So Super League will get a lot of money and it'll all come down. My view is that by having this competition and this prize at the end of it to go up and get money that way, the whole of women's football gets better. By which I mean, let's say, for example, we know teams in Tier 3, Forest, Wolves, Burnley, Oxford, Ipswich, Portsmouth, these sort of teams, and there will be others that I haven't mentioned right there, have ambitions of being Super League teams. Yes, it's going to take a long time to get there, don't get me wrong, but they have ambitions to be Super League teams. If that's shut off, what's the point? Everything, Championship and down, just becomes development leagues. Let's just train the players, get them as good as they can be, and then they can ship off to the Super League. But they won't ship off to the Super League because, like the Premier League, Super League will just bring players in from elsewhere with the money they've got, and the British players won't get that much of a look in. Yes, you will have good British players that play in Super League teams. Just look at the national team. There's loads of great players. But what I'm saying is, say if you're in the Championship, and this happens, what's the drive to invest in the club, make everything better, if you can win the championship and there's no reward at the end of it? There's no drive then. Yeah, if you go, okay, we can go into the championship, that's great. If they would keep promotion and relegation between the championship and the FAWNL, yes, it needs to be two places, but that's a completely different argument, and it's not an FAWNL problem, because the playoff game, we don't like it. We know we don't like it, but it's the only way they can do it. They're told only one team can come up and you've got two leagues. Unless you're going to make Tier 3 all of a sudden a national league, and you take top 6 from the north, top 6 from the south, you make a national league, and then you go, okay, well, the FAWNL is now Tier 3, Tier 4 and Tier 5, and then we go 6, 7 and 8. But so there's nothing to, what's to stop Wolves or Forest or Ipswich? They're putting all this investment in. They're trying to do everything the right way to get into the Championship, then continue to build, get into the Super League. That's the ambition of these clubs. If you can say, all right, well, you can now only do the Championship. That's as good as you can get, and you'll very rarely ever be on TV. It won't. You won't get all the publicity. Yes, there are these women's football shows, Talk Sport, for example, the rest of it, but they focus on the Super League, and I can understand why they focus on the Super League. But, other than the draws that happen once a month for 15 minutes, that's about all they get a mention of. It's the whole reason I started this show 73 episodes ago, is because nobody did something focused entirely on the FAWNL. And Emma Hayes has come out and said, the franchising works really well in America. Yes, it does. It's established, particularly in the big four leagues. They've been going for ages. They're not trying to grow the game from the ground up, because the women's game over in America wasn't banned for ages. And they've had to build everything up from the ground up and, scrabble about with what they can. On a side note, the pictures that have come out from Stoke City's ground this week are absolutely appalling. That needs sorting out, Stoke. And they're not trying to build it from the ground up. If you want to completely, if you want to grow the women's game as a whole, you need to have this promotion and relegation. Allow teams to invest, right? Teams invest. They get to go up to, let's even just go from here to the Championship, Tier 3 to the Championship. And they've invested all the facilities and everything in that, and they do better training, and the players, they get fitter, stronger, better players as a whole. It makes the Championship more competitive. Right? Teams then come down from the Championship, and some of the players may go, some of the players will stay, because again, they're amateur players, semi-pro players, what have you. Have other things to do in that area. The teams that come down, be it, let's say this season, Coventry United, Sheffield United, whoever it is that comes down, they keep some of those players. I mean, look at Watford this year. And they're challenging at the top, but it raises the game. You come up against these top teams, you go, right, what's this team that's been in the Championship? What are they doing? Okay, well, they're training 3 times a week. We're only training twice a week. Let's go to 3 times a week training. We travel to Watford and we go, let's have a look at their facilities. Oh, these are pretty good. What do they do that we can do? And then the teams start to implement that, and Tier 3 gets stronger and Tier 4 gets stronger. And in the end, eventually, and again, it's going to take a lot of time, will take a lot of time, but eventually you'll end up with 4 tiers that are strong. Yes, they're not all at the Super League level, but there's 4 tiers that are strong, and you'll have teams that have experience in the Championship that may fall down to Tier 3 or even Tier 4. All you've got to do, look at the men's game, look at the teams that are now in like League One, your Derbys, you've got Portsmouths, and teams, suddenly you've got Oldham and Swindon. They've been Premier League teams, albeit when it first started. You look at the Championship, something like I think it's only 3 or maybe it's even 2 now of the teams in the Championship in the men's game haven't been in the Premier League. The Championship's really difficult, and I should know, being a Forest fan and spending 23 years trying to get back to the Premier League. Yes, it will take time, but by having that promotion and relegation and teams swapping and seeing other things like that, that's how we're going to grow the women's game long term. I think, in all honesty, and this is my final point now, having a closed-off Super League sounds good. I think will hurt the women's game in the long run, and I think is a bit short-sighted, personally. And that is my view on the Women's Super League, and Emma Hayes has thought that it should remove relegation. I found it interesting as well, actually, that London Seaward, as a club on the club account, came out with their disagreements about that as well. But that's it. That is my kind of mini rant about those comments from Emma Hayes and the FA Women's Super League and my viewpoint. Also, I'll go back to that side matter slightly. The pictures that have come out from Stoke City, if you haven't seen them, and they have been doing the rounds, they are absolutely appalling, with mould on the walls and all in the toilets and just rubbish absolutely everywhere around the side of the pitch. It is absolutely appalling. But that's it. That's it for the rant. That was the news. Let's go and have a look at the fixtures. So, Northern Premier Division, not a lot happening this weekend because it is County Cup Day. It should also be FAWNL Plate semi-final day on Sunday, but neither of the ties are taking place because the teams are playing in the County Cup. So that's next weekend, as well as FA Cup 5th round day with Cardiff City involved. So, Northern Premier Division, Nottingham Forest hosting Boldmere St Michael's. That's 1st against 11th. You've got to see that Forest win that. They go back 6 points clear. Yes, they will have played 2 games more than Wolves, but I would rather have points on the board rather than games in hand. Stoke City against Derby County, mid-table clash. Really, yes, Derby can get themselves into second with a win, but they will have played 3 games more than Wolves and Burnley. Speaking of Wolves and Burnley, that 2 games in hand from Forest will go back down to 1 in midweek. So on Wednesday, Brighouse Town take on Liverpool Feds. Again, bit of a mid-table clash, but Liverpool Feds are only 2 points above safety at the moment. 2 points above that drop zone at the moment. So, important game for them. Yes, for Brighouse Town, they're on a great run of form at the moment. They, in my opinion anyway, yes, they've played more than everybody else, considerably more than everybody else. But those teams down towards the bottom are there for a reason. I think Brighouse might, in that mini spell there, have done enough to get themselves safe, because I think in their final 7 games, they will pick up enough points just to get themselves over the line. So Wednesday, Burnley against Fylde, 3rd against 8th. Again, you've got to look at Burnley for that one. Still unbeaten this season. The fact they're unbeaten but not top of the table because they've just drawn too many games is quite remarkable, really. West Brom against Boldmere St Michael's, huge game down at the bottom, 10th against 11. They're level on points. They might, one of them will be in the relegation zone by the end of Wednesday night because they can't both get 3 points and overtake Liverpool Feds. But a huge game for both those sides down at the bottom. Boldmere St Michael's, if they lose it, will have still played a game more and be 2, maybe 3 points away from safety. And Wolverhampton Wanderers against Stoke City, so that's one of their games in hand back over Forest. Again, can't look past Wolves. I think the top 3 will all win this week, and will just be one step closer to the end of the season with the points being exactly as they are. The points gaps, being exactly as they are. Southern Premier Division, then Portsmouth against Cheltenham Town at the weekend, and Watford against MK Dons. So Portsmouth, bit similar to Forest, they can increase the gap to 4 points, but they will have played 2 games more. Watford, they can get themselves up to 3rd, with Ipswich not playing at all. If they beat MK Dons, who are down in 8th. Then on Wednesday, Gillingham against Crawley Wasps. Can Crawley Wasps make it 2 wins in a row? That would lift them off the bottom of the table because Plymouth aren't playing at all. But it does mean that Crawley Wasps will have played 3 games more than Plymouth. So again, all these games in hand that are still a bit mismatched. It's going to be a busy second half to the season. You can see on the whiteboard behind me a lot of Red League games in there. So that's coming up. So Wednesday, Gillingham against Crawley Wasps. Wednesday, London Bees against Oxford. So that's Oxford. Well, I would say it's Oxford getting a game back against Portsmouth, but it's not because Portsmouth are also playing on Wednesday. So London Bees, they're down in 10th. Again, I kind of have to look at Oxford for this one. And then Watford against Portsmouth. That's going to be an interesting one, and I don't know which way that's going to go. Again, it's not a game in hand because Portsmouth and Watford are still playing at the weekend. So then they're playing each other. So there's not going to be any game in hand advantage gained by Watford. But Watford, if they lose to Portsmouth and it puts them 11 points back, excluding what happens at the weekend, I suspect they might both win. 11 points back, yes, they've still got 3 games in hand. It'll be 2 points back. So you still can't discount them, but it does put a lot of pressure on Watford. Oxford United, yes, they're playing once. Ipswich aren't playing at all. So Watford will be level on games with Ipswich after this week, by the time we do next week's show. So if they don't win both of those games, then that advantage is nullified. It is also worth saying there are a bunch of midweek games happening on Thursday next week, but obviously they are happening after next week's show comes out, so they're on next week's show. So this only goes up to the end of Wednesday as it is at the moment. So if your team's playing on Thursday, that's why they're not on the screens at the moment. Right, Division 1 North then. Lots of games happening here, but again, just 2 at the weekend. Bradford City against Chorley. Huge game at the bottom, 12 against 10. This is an opportunity for Bradford to move themselves off the bottom of the table, and they have the opportunity to get themselves within 3 points of safety. So that's huge, particularly because they are then also playing on Tuesday. We'll get on to that in a moment. Hull City against Merseyrail, 7th against 11th. Merseyrail desperate for the win. Right, on to Tuesday. Barnsley against Bradford City, 3rd against 12th. Going to be tough, but Bradford have that opportunity. That's the spur, particularly if they beat Chorley, because Chorley are playing as well in a 6-pointer. And with that goal difference as well, with Bradford playing Chorley, couple of wins, Bradford could be out at the bottom too. Division 1 North wide open, it's probably going to go all the way. Merseyrail against Chorley, 11th against 10th, a 5-point gap as it stands at the moment because Merseyrail play at the weekend, so do Chorley though. Merseyrail have got 2 games this week. After these 2 games, they've only got 5 left to play. Middlesbrough, Bradford, Norton, Stockport and Leeds. So you're looking at the Middlesbrough, Bradford and Norton games because Stockport and Leeds are going to be tough. If Merseyrail lose to Hull, if they lose to Chorley, then they are really going to be struggling to get the points they need to stay up. Bradford, a little bit more because they've got those games in hand to play. Yes, they've got to play Newcastle twice, but they've got Chorley twice, they've got Norton, they've got York, they've got Merseyrail. They've got more games in which to pick up those points. More winnable games, so to speak. Newcastle United against Middlesbrough, 2nd against 6th. Newcastle need to win. Durham Cester are playing on Tuesday as well, so they need to win to really keep the pressure on. If they don't and they fall 7 points back, even with a game in hand, it is advantage Durham. Durham are facing Norton and Stockton Ancients. I'm sorry, but I can't see anything other than a Durham win in that one, even though it's away from home. Norton Stockton Ancients battling down towards the bottom. And Stockport County against Leeds United. That's 4th versus 5th. A bit of a mid-table battle there. That one is on Wednesday. That one game is on Wednesday. So it's a little bit later. But again, Leeds, if they win it, have enough games in hand to maybe drag themselves into the conversation towards the back half of the season because they are 16 points behind Durham as it stands. They've got 4 games in hand. That could go down to 4 points. It's not impossible. So Leeds, if they lose it though, I think that's them done for the title race. But if they win it, they have enough games to maybe drag themselves into the conversation, particularly when they have to play Newcastle and play Durham. If they win those games as well, then they could really be in the conversation. Division 1 Midlands, 5 games for us to look out. Long Eaton United against Sheffield, big game down at the bottom. Sheffield with 4 games in hand and a 9-point advantage. Could be a draw. I think it may well go Sheffield's way. Sporting Cowser against Leek Town. Sporting Cowser in 4th, Leek Town are in 9th. Leek could do with at least just 1 point, just make it more than a 1-game gap to the relegation zone. But Sporting Cowser looking strong in 4th. They'll be looking to try and climb up towards 2nd, although my gut instinct is they're too far back from Stourbridge, who have games in hand as well. Tuesday, Stourbridge take on Sporting Cowser, another big game. So if Sporting Cowser aren't out of it by Sunday, I think if Stourbridge beat them on Tuesday, then they are. And Stourbridge just slowly picking off these teams. Long Eaton United against Leek Town on Wednesday. That's 12th against 9th. Again, Long Eaton United really needing to pick up these wins because they're 9 points back at the moment. Let's call it 10 points back because of the vastly inferior goal difference, and they're playing twice this week. After that, they only have 6 games to go, and they have to take on Stourbridge, Leafield, Sporting Cowser, Lincoln City. It runs out, for me, if Long Eaton United don't get anything from this weekend, the fact they've got to play, Stourbridge, Sporting Cowser, Leafield, Lincoln, they've got to play in their final 6 games, 4 teams in the current top 6, they aren't going to get enough points to get themselves safe. Wemtown against Solihull Moors, that is 11th against 3rd. Again, you fancy Solihull Moors in that one. Division 1 South East, here we go. This is the big one. Down at the bottom, Hounslow hosting Cambridge City. This one was meant to be in March, and then because Hounslow got knocked out of County Cup by Charlton Athletic under 21s, it's been brought forward because Cambridge weren't playing. Should Cambridge win this, it's a 6-point gap, make it a 7-point gap because of the goal difference, and Hounslow, you have to think, are done. However, Hounslow win, and they're level on points, and they've got to play each other again. That makes it far more interesting. Elsewhere, London Seawood against Chesham, that's 3rd against 9th. Then on Wednesday, the entire league playing on Wednesday. Wimbledon against Ashford Town, 2nd against 6th. Cambridge United, Cambridge City, the Battle of Cambridge. Hashtag against London Seawood, 1st against 3rd. Big game at the top. Can London Seawood disrupt Hashtag, who are unbeaten so far this season? Hounslow against Chesham United, that's 11th against 9th. So Hounslow this week have to play the 2 teams that they are trying to catch. Can they do anything? And QPR against Actonians is 7th against 5th. All the interest, though, is at the bottom between Hounslow, Cambridge City and Chesham United. Now, things to bear in mind. Hounslow haven't played Cambridge City yet. So anything could happen in that game. However, and this is, I know we're going off long games. Earlier on in the season, Hounslow lost 9-0 to QPR and Cambridge City only just lost to them last week. Chesham earlier in the season also beat Hounslow 9-1 and they're playing them again this week. My gut instinct, Cambridge City will win. I don't think it's going to be the 12, 12, 16, 8, 13, 10, 15, 12 that Hounslow have been conceding. Just for reference, in all competitions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 out of the last 8 games they've conceded double digits. And the one they didn't was 8 against Southampton Women. I can't see Hounslow winning the games. I just can't. Part of me wants them to win because it would make it a lot more interesting. But I think that Chesham will win and that puts them on 12. Cambridge City will win, that puts them on 6. And then where are Hounslow going to get 7 points from when they are conceding an average of 11 goals a game in the league? It's just not going to happen, is it? And I think a lot of us, we have all known for a while, and particularly after Wyndham got relegated, because of course Hounslow beat Wyndham and then Wyndham dropped out of the league, so that got nullified. So yeah, I can't see it, and I think if we're all honest, we've known that for a while now. Finally then, Division 1 Southwest, because this is a very, very long show indeed, I do apologise. AFC Bournemouth against Exeter City, third against first. Big game in Division 1 Southwest there. Bournemouth are really going... they've got 2 games this week as well. That will put them on 17. They'll only have 5 games left after this. If they lose to Exeter, and in midweek they've got to play Moneyfields as well, they don't pick up points, that could be them done. They'd be 8 points back from Exeter at least, because Exeter have got to play Austell on Wednesday, and they'll win that one. I'm fairly certain about that. You're looking at Bournemouth being possibly, if they lose to Exeter, and it is not beyond the realms of possibility at all that they lose to Moneyfields, and I think Exeter will beat Austell, they could find themselves 11 points back with only 5 games to play, and then that's Bournemouth done, because they're not going to make that up, because Exeter aren't going to lose enough for Bournemouth to make that up. So this could be a defining week for Bournemouth. If they beat Exeter, then that's great. They put themselves on 32 and Exeter on 34. Yes, of course, you still need Exeter and Cardiff to slip up. So that's an important week for Bournemouth. Portishead against Swindon Town, that's 10th against 6th. So that's Swindon are safe. They're 10 points clear. Portishead need to try and increase that gap to Larkhall Athletic. This is one of Portishead's games in hand on Larkhall Athletic, although Larkhall claim it straight back. Sorry, no, it's not, because it's on Sunday. I was getting confused there. Portishead against Swindon Town. Chelsea take on Keynsham Town. That's 7th against 9th. Again, important because the gap's 6 points at the moment. Southampton Women's take on Larkhall Athletic. You think Southampton Women are going to win that one. So that's an opportunity for some of these teams to maybe increase that gap. Portishead, even if they can get a draw with Swindon, make it 4 points. Just make it a little bit harder for Larkhall to come back into it. And then on Wednesday, AFC St Austell against Exeter City. I've explained that already. I think that's Exeter's. And Moneyfields against AFC Bournemouth. Third plays fourth. With the goal difference, if it's a goal difference, of course, if Exeter win, then the goal difference is going to be, a maximum of 5. So with a 3-goal swing, Moneyfields could jump above Bournemouth. That will give them some incentive as well. They've got a game in hand over Exeter. So, they're only 5 points back if they win that game in hand. So important game for them as well. But a very, very important week for AFC Bournemouth. And that will do it for this week's Women's Football Chat. Nearly an hour long. So thank you very much for... watching and or listening. We went through all of the results. I had a bit of a rant about the news. It does get a bit longer when we've got the news to look at as well. And of course, as we go into those run-ins, the shows will get a bit longer, but we can really dive into the detail as we look ahead towards the end of the season. So it's a bit of a quieter weekend, but then midweek coming up as well. Then next week, we've got plate semi-finals to look at. We've got Cardiff in the FA Cup to look at. And it's been a really important week. How different are the tables going to look? You will have to join me next Thursday at 6 p.m. to find out. But for now, thank you very much for watching and or listening. Of course, keep supporting your local women's football team, whether they're in league action or county cup this weekend and in midweek. Thank you very much for watching and or listening, and goodbye.